Hello everyone, this is Real World Audio, and we are continuing with our Bach series. But today's episode, I would call it the curse of making things more popular. I hope I will remember this and call the video with this title. And that's because what people don't know is that many recording studios, when they issue things, and this is much more frequent now on CDs than it was on LPs, is that to emphasize the dimensionality and the stereo space and the stereo imaging, at the mastering, and people flip the phases out from each other. I think everyone has heard about the fact that when you listen to music, then the music is coming either in correct polarity or incorrect polarity. So correct polarity means that at the electrical level, the signal is at correct polarity, and when it translates into sound, it becomes, if it was at correct polarity, it will be in correct acoustic phase. So that's why I'm talking about phase when I talk about music being in correct phase, because that's what we hear. And when electronics engineers talk about this phenomenon, they talk about polarity because they work with the signal at the electric level, and at this level it's polarity, and then it will be the acoustic phase. So correct polarity and correct phase means that the loudspeaker will start its sound making by moving outwards. So it's creating a pressure on your eardrum, and then it goes back, and then it creates the pressure again, goes back. Now when it's out of phase, resulted by out of polarity, then the signal starts by the driver moving backwards, so it's sucking air in. And the really easy way to tell polarity is you go to your driver and you place your back of the hand in front of the driver. And if you feel pressure on your hand, if you have a hairy hand like mine, this will be very useful for this, because it will intensify the feeling, so you will feel that there's pressure on your hand. And if it's out of phase, on the wrong polarity, then when music is playing, of course you have to play music and play it loud. If it's out in the wrong polarity, out of phase, then you will not feel pressure on your hand. The same thing, you can go on your compression driver. If you play really loud, then you will really feel like the compression driver, it's capable of insane sound pressure, like 120 dB easily. And if you play it at that level, you really feel your hand shaking by the energy coming out, if it is in correct polarity, correct phase. But let's come back here, because when we are talking about correct polarity, everyone knows and assumes that both channels are in the same polarity. So both sides, here and here, they start moving out, then recede. Out of polarity, reverse phase, they are going back first on both sides and then coming out. Now, here we go. I just now show you a really wacko phenomenon, is that there are recordings out there where the phases, the polarities of each channels are out of phase from each other. And in this recording, these CDs were done in a way that the right channel will start in correct phase, so it will start to come out, but the left one, it will start to go back. So they work against each other. So it's like, imagine like two people paddling, and instead of like pushing at the same time, one is pushing, the other is pulling. And the result of that is that you do not have a center image anymore, because the opposite polarity sound waves cancel out each other, so you will have nothing at the center. Yes, you will have something at the center, but you will never get a center image. So if that's the case, that you are listening to music, not just Bach, anything on the planet, and you are not getting a center image, maybe your speakers are not the ones to blame, but it's the music. So then try to flip the polarity on one channel, and you will be amazed that now you have a solid center image. And suddenly, instead of a disarray of diverse sounds and truncated 3D experience, now you have a flesh and blood three-dimensional happening in front of you. So then why on earth do people do that trick? Why do they flip one phase out? Because here, look at this recording. So those ones, the Telefunken LPs, they are the original recordings, and they were done on a master tape and then transferred to disc. And then the digital version, master tape was digitized and then printed, transferred into the CDs. However, when they did the digital transfer, Warner made the decision to flip the left channel on to the opposite polarity. And why did they do that? Because when you flip one channel out of polarity, you destroy the center focus, and basically you pull the imaging to both sides. So you will have the impression that your sound stage gets much wider than it was before. Oh, in the case of these cantatas, and not just box 1, I listened to the volume 3, quite a few CDs from each of them, and all of them, the left channel is flipped out of polarity. So apparently Warner did make that call. Okay, we want to flip it because we want to make it more showy. And they could get away with that easily, because even for audiophile systems, a typical audiophile, a high level, a high-end system, has severe phase issues, severe problems with the polarity of the signal. And especially when you have feedback, amplifiers with high feedback, they destroy a lot of those small cues that a correct polarity recording will give you. And I give you now a specific example for that, using these Teldec CDs. So when I'm playing them, so my Ampex amplifiers, on them I could flip the polarity from correct polarity to inverse polarity. So when the speakers receive the signal, they can work in phase or out of phase. And in addition, I also have a feedback switch. So I have about 2 dB of global negative feedback, and I can switch it on or off on the fly when I'm listening to music. And I can do that on both channels. And guess what? When I'm listening to the music with the amps set at the correct polarity, but of course the CD is feeding the wrong polarity signal to the left channel, so I'm hearing out of phase information from the left, and that collapses the center image and pulls the sides further away because of the interferences that happen because of the inverse polarity between the two sides. And that inverse polarity effect creates an effect that I hear that these discs are digital. It will start to sound jittery and unnatural, and acquire qualities that we associate with bad CD, bad digital, bad streaming. So when it doesn't feel natural, but it feels digital, and I'm not saying that so that all digital is bad. I'm mentioning this as an example for that quote unquote bad digital sound And you get that, or I get that, when the two channels are out of phase, and then those cancellation interactions bring out these digital artifacts to an extreme degree. And however, then the sound stage gets like really wide, like beyond the speakers, and it sounds like a really nasty digital. And when I switch on the feedback, then this nasty digital effect is mitigated to an extreme degree. It sounds much more natural. If the feedback is on, yet there's that polarity problem and it's causing these interference problems. So I'm getting a polarity compromised sound, that the same thing that you would normally get when you listen to an audio system that has severe phase and polarity issues. So if we are talking about polarity issues, it comes from the drivers in incorrect polarities to each other, and it also comes from the addition of feedback, because for one part, when you add feedback to a messed up situation, it will clear it up and it won't be as bothersome. However, I have to add, when I still have it out of phase with feedback, it's really a shadow of an experience when it's in correct polarity and no feedback. And I think having feedback on our amplifiers today is such an important issue, because it helps to a big degree to deal with the problems when your loudspeakers are messed up, they are not designed properly, they have phase errors between their drivers, or they crossover is causing those phase errors, or your bad recording has phase errors in them, or your amplifier topology itself is creating those phase errors by using too many gain stages and too many correction mechanisms, because each of those will help us to maintain a wide frequency band, but they will do it at the cost of ruining the phase relationship. So the phase and frequency relationship will be compromised with that mechanism. And when you employ more and more feedback, you are erasing a lot of the transient information of so you will still be getting that there's a 20 kilohertz signal, for example, riding on a 1 kilohertz wave, and there's also an additional 16 kilohertz wave, so you get a very complex waveform. But for the ear to interpret it as a true and natural signal, those 16 kilohertz and 20 kilohertz and 1 kilohertz, they need to be at the proper phase relationship to each other. And the more feedback you use, you will still have these frequencies, but the phase relationship between them will be slightly altered. So you will read in the figures of an amplifier that has, let's say, like 40 dB negative feedback, that it has a perfect flat frequency response curve from, let's say, 5 hertz to 100 kilohertz. But this figure tells nothing about you, about how, what is the polarity accuracy. And if there is a description that it gives you a perfect polarity as well, then that's an excellent execution. But if it doesn't mention that fact as well, then you can be 100.0% sure that the phase response is severely compromised. Maybe not to such a degree that it's flipped 180 degrees, but you do not need such big flips. And those phase responses, in the case of electronics generating them with the feedback, is just localized to smaller regions, and also depending on the amplitude of the signal, the phase relationships change. So it's not something like a set difference, a set messing up of the phase response, but it's something dynamic that changes with the change in the signal level. So it's something that your brain cannot adapt to, it cannot recognize a pattern, and that's why we will never recognize it as natural music. And that's why I would say it's very important for you to recognize when you see that this thing is happening, when one channel is out of phase. I think if your system is at any level of sophistication, whether it has phase problems or not, you will notice it that you are not getting a center image. If your system has considerable phase issues by itself, then you might get it that there's literally nothing, like the center is fully collapsed. And when you have a system that is truly excellent on 3D imaging, then you will still have a very good 3D image, and it's not going to collapse back into nothingness. Like, for example, in my case, this is what I had. I still had a very good 3D image, even though I had those signs that there was a discrepancy. But I was just so much into the past, thinking of my past memories, that I didn't even notice that the two halves were out of phase. And when I flipped the phase back, then bingo, finally I can listen to it with the feedback off, and just have an experience that is truly something that I'm really looking forward to listening to all 153 CDs again. And it's not something that, oh, okay, I got it, no, I just do it, why not? And then when I get to the end, I will like it, hopefully, but something now that I'm really truly looking forward. So hopefully around Christmas time, I will try to find a couple of days when I just play Bach non-stop. And the Micro Mega CD player, this is one of those unique players that can really handle playing non-stop for an entire week. So most CD players would die from that exhaustion. But also by the time I want to fix up my Onkyo CD changer, where I can load in 6 CDs into the tray, press stop, and then after it finishes one, it goes to the next. So I have over 6 hours of Bach without needing to have any thoughts about the stereo system, because that's the purpose of your stereo system, is that you don't want to pay any attention to it whatsoever, just listen to it. And in general, I'm a bigger fan of analog music, of vinyl, than digital. And of course, in my experience, the analog version, the LPs are quite a bit of a step up compared to the CD. But if you were to come here and continue with me after I stop this video, you would be really shocked how good these CDs can sound, and how natural, and how close to the heart they are. And in this case, with a good CD changer, it's truly something that you can just lay down and just like fall in a semi-sleep, or fall asleep. Just put it to play quietly, and have a night, and you are sleeping, and in your dreams Bach is going on non-stop in the background. And I had this experience 20 years ago, and And it's truly something that will really refresh you, that will truly elevate the experience of your everydays, and quite possibly it can give you munition for your daily life for the next 5 years, next 10 years, to really well, I really have no words. The last word I have is for you to get yourself into a situation where you can have an experience like that. And happy listening to Bach's cantatas if you already have them at home. If you have a streamer, put the streaming on for the entire night, put it on quiet volume, and then just fall into sleep slowly. So good night, everyone. Thank you for tuning in. Bye bye.